You have probably heard people say, money goes to money, or the more you have, the more you make. And you have probably nodded along while thinking, okay, but that does not really apply to me yet. Because right now, the numbers feel small, the progress feels slow, and it is genuinely hard to see how this supposed snowball effect is ever going to kick in when you are still grinding towards your first meaningful savings milestone. In this video, I want to take you behind the scenes and explain exactly why these phrases exist. Why your first $20,000 is the milestone that changes everything. What is actually happening mathematically and psychologically once you reach it. And if you are not there yet, exactly what I would do to get there faster. There are 4 reasons why $20,000 is the inflection point. Let's get into all of them. The first reason is that $20,000 makes the single biggest difference to your financial well-being. And I mean that in a very specific, research-backed way. Before you have any meaningful money saved, every financial decision you make comes from a place of scarcity. You take the first job offer that comes along, even if it is nowhere near what you are worth because you need the income now. You stay in situations you genuinely hate, bad jobs, bad relationships, bad living situations, because you cannot afford the risk of leaving. You say yes to things that compromise you because the money is there and you need it. You are constantly making decisions from a position of fear of running out, fear of not having enough, fear of what happens if something goes wrong. And when you are in that survival mode, your brain literally does not have the bandwidth to think about growth. You are not thinking about investing. You are not thinking about building something. You are thinking about making it to the next paycheck. Everything is short term because it has to be. There is research from Vanguard that illustrates this with a number that I find genuinely striking. Simply having $2,000 in emergency savings, just $2,000, produces a measurable 21% increase in financial well-being. Not $20,000, $2,000. Just knowing that a small cushion exists between you and a crisis changes how you feel about your entire financial situation. And when you push that cushion to 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses, that well-being boost increases by another 13%. What this tells you is that the psychological shift is real and it is measurable. It is not just a feeling. The security of having money set aside fundamentally changes how you think, how you make decisions, and what becomes possible. Now, $20,000 takes that further. For most people, $20,000 represents somewhere between 3 and 6 months of living expenses. It is the point at which you cross the line from just getting by to actually having money. And that crossing, that moment when you log into your account and see a number that feels real and substantial, changes your relationship with money in a way that is very hard to describe until you have experienced it yourself. Suddenly, you are making decisions from a position of choice rather than necessity. You can walk away from something that is not working. You can take a calculated risk. You can say no to something that compromises your values because you have a safety net that buys you the time to do so. That is not just financial security. It is a completely different quality of life. The second reason is momentum. And this is where the math starts getting genuinely exciting. Compound interest is one of the most powerful forces in personal finance. But the reason most people do not fully feel it early on is not because it is not working. It is because the base is still small. Once you hit $20,000, though, you start to feel it. Your money is no longer just sitting there waiting for your next contribution to move the needle. It is generating its own returns. And then those returns are generating their own returns. The growth becomes self-sustaining. Let me make this concrete with numbers. Say you are putting away $1,000 every month and earning an 8% average annual return. Getting to your first $20,000 takes around 19 months. That feels like a long time. It requires discipline, consistency, and real sacrifice. But here is where the shift happens. Your second $20,000 does not take another 19 months. It takes around 17. Why? Because now you have that first $20,000 working alongside your contributions, earning its own returns and adding them to your growing total. By the time you are working towards your third $20,000, the timeline shrinks again. And it keeps shrinking. By the time your portfolio reaches $400,000, your next $20,000 arrives in around 5 months. Not from your contributions alone, but from the investment returns your existing portfolio is generating. The same milestone that took you nearly 2 years to reach the first time is now happening automatically without you having to do anything differently. That is what momentum looks like in practice, and it all starts from that first $20,000. Think of it like pushing a boulder up a hill. The first $20,000 is the hardest, slowest, most exhausting part. You are doing almost all the pushing yourself, but once it crests the top and starts rolling downhill, your job changes completely. You are no longer the engine. The momentum is. The third reason is that the maths genuinely gets better as you go. And I want to be clear about something here because there is a persistent myth that wealthy people build wealth faster because they have access to secret investments or exclusive opportunities that regular people cannot touch. That is largely not true. What is actually happening is far simpler. It is basic maths working at a different scale. And think about it this way. You invest $1,000 into something that grows 10% in a year. You make $100. Now, take that exact same investment, same percentage return, same time frame, same level of risk, and apply it to $20,000. You make $2,000. Apply it to $100,000 and you make $10,000. The investment strategy is identical. The only variable is the capital base. And that is what changes everything. When your portfolio is $20,000 earning 8% annually, that is $1,600 a year flowing into your account that you did not have to earn through your job. Money that arrived because your existing money was working on your behalf. At $50,000, that becomes $4,000 a year. At $100,000, it becomes $8,000. At $200,000, it is $16,000. These are not life-changing numbers on their own at the start, but they are being reinvested. They are adding to the base. They are compounding. And the trajectory of that compounding over a decade or two is genuinely extraordinary. The strategy does not get more sophisticated as your wealth grows. The maths just gets more powerful because you have more capital for it to work on. That is the entire secret. There is no club. There is no exclusive access. There is just scale and the time and patience to let it compound. The fourth reason, and I would argue this is the most important one of all, is that reaching $20,000 means you have built the most important habit there is in personal finance. And most people completely miss the significance of this. When you save $20,000 for the first time, you have done something that goes far beyond the number itself. You have demonstrated to yourself, with evidence, in reality, not just in theory, that you are the kind of person who can delay gratification when it matters. You had to say no to things you wanted. You had to make choices that felt uncomfortable in the moment. You had to track where your money was going and make deliberate decisions about where you sent it. And you did it consistently over months to the tune of $20,000. That identity shift from someone who is trying to manage money to someone who has genuinely proven they can is worth more than the $20,000 itself in the long run. Because the same habits, the same discipline, the same ability to stay consistent through discomfort that got you to $20,000 are the exact same things that will get you to $50,000, to $100,000 and beyond. The number grows. The habits stay the same. And once you have built them once, you know you can build them again. So if you are reading this and thinking, I am nowhere near $20,000 yet, here is exactly what I would focus on. The first thing is to get completely clear on your current financial picture. You cannot navigate towards a destination without knowing where you are starting from. Most people have only a vague sense of what they actually spend each month and almost no clarity on what they could realistically save. The first step is to sit down and calculate your actual monthly income after tax. your actual essential expenses, and the gap between them. That gap is what you have to work with. And once you can see it clearly, you can start making real decisions about how to grow it. The second thing is to automate your saving. The single biggest enemy of savings goals is willpower. It runs out. Life gets busy, something comes up. The month ends, and there is nothing left over. The solution is to remove willpower from the equation entirely by setting up an automatic transfer from your current account into a separate high-yield savings account on the day you get paid. Before the money has any chance of being spent on anything else, it is already gone, sitting in an account that is earning interest and growing your emergency fund on autopilot. You do not have to decide to save every month. You only have to make that decision once. The third thing is not to underestimate the power of earning more. Cutting expenses matters. Automating savings matters. But there is a ceiling to how far cost reduction can take you. If you are earning $40,000 a year and your essential expenses are $35,000, no budgeting system in the world is going to build wealth quickly. At some point, the most powerful lever available to you is income. A job switch, which, as we covered in a previous video, typically delivers 10 to 20% salary increases at the point of moving, can compress your timeline to $20,000 by months or even years compared to staying where you are. Developing a skill that commands a higher rate, building a freelance income on the side of your job, negotiating a raise with concrete evidence of your market value. These are the things that change the trajectory of the savings curve, not just the gradient of it. And one final thing I want to say about $20,000 and about any financial milestone is this. The number is not the point. The point is what it represents. It represents safety. It represents options. It represents proof of your own discipline. And it represents the beginning of compounding actually working for you in a way you can feel. Once you understand that, you stop seeing the climb towards it as deprivation, and you start seeing it for what it actually is: the most important investment you will ever make in your own financial future. If this video was useful, subscribe. I post every week on investing, wealth building, and the things I wish someone had told me before I spent nearly a decade learning them the hard way.